Dave, welcome back, my friend. It's great for you to
Thank
for
you.
us to be able to be back here together. And yeah, man. So this topic, the resolute accept. I mean, I can understand why as a former warrior, I can understand the resolute acceptance of death on the battlefield and how that can create sort of a strong sense of advantage, right? Or we think that perhaps it might. Um, but tell me first, before I kind of go into sort of the nuances of this topic and why I think it's important or useful, what got you excited about this topic, Dave?
Well, first of all, hi everybody. It's awesome to be doing this with you again, Leigh. Thank you. I just think I know talking about death in a business sense sounds a bit weird and maybe almost a bit taboo and maybe inappropriate. But to me, like if you look, not only Buddhism but also in Sufism, they have die before you die kind of thing. And to me, that there's this ironic reversal where those who are really fearful of bad things happening tend to be those to whom bad things
They
happen.
manifest it, right? It almost comes out of their fear, right? I'm sorry to interrupt you, but yeah,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
yeah, no, exactly. Whereas I think if you sort of deeply accept the possibility that things might go wrong, however likely or unlikely, if you just deeply accept that and accept that it's your mission to try and not make them go wrong, to make them go right, um, it looks like being foolhardy, but I think it's almost the opposite of that. There's this round the world sailor guy, Pete Goss, who we used to work with at
Right.
CIO Academy in Oxford. You know
Yeah,
him as
yeah.
well, and he used to say, he did like these crazy things, North Pole, South Pole, round the world single handed, and he always used to say, "I don't take risk, I embrace risk," and it's more like acceptance of risk and being in that world with risk and know that you're taking risk, but not allowing it to paralyze you. I mean, I think there's more to
No,
it. I
I
hope we'll
love
get
that.
into
So, Paul Proctor and I did a keynote at one of our security conferences, and I know we don't talk about Fight Club, but at one of our security conferences a while back, Paul Proctor and I did a keynote that was basically like, stop trying to be the sheriff when it comes to information security. Be the stunt coordinator. Be the person who
it.
engages with risk to figure out how to fulfill the filmmaker's vision, not just trying to manage it like you're the security guard on the film set, right? Because that's a fool's errand. That's a lose-lose proposition.
Yeah.
Man, I love all of that, and I want to double click on a few of those things. But I even start maybe perhaps more essentially or more basically in this idea. I don't want to say more basically; it sounds like we're being comparative, but really, the resolute acceptance of death to me can mean just that, right? If you've ever had, and my dad took 10 years to die after he got a fatal prognosis.
Mm.
That's actually kind of a gift, right? My sister has the same prognosis, and she's looking down the barrel now because of medical technology of perhaps being able to extend her life by maybe 20 years. But still
Mm.
knowing that at any day that pacemaker in her heart or that defibrillator that's running her heart right now could die or fail, or she could go into VTAC and just die on you,
Yeah.
changes the sort of thing. And it doesn't change it in a bad way. It's almost sort of like a gift, right? Because we like to talk so much about living in the moment. We like to talk so much about being present and being real. But if you knew that the last time that you saw somebody would be the last time that you saw somebody, how would that conversation go, right? And I'm just thinking back to we had a mutual friend and colleague, Patrick Meehan, who passed away a couple of years ago. Literally, the last thing I said to him was, "I'm glad you're not dead."
Mm.
Right? I don't know. I just so like starting even from that sort of essential kind of mindset of the resolute acceptance of death, particularly the idea that other people that I care about might die, and people that I might be attached to might die. And this isn't about becoming detached. It's actually, I think, about embracing sort of that attachment and embracing that connection and making it more real and making it and seeing it for as valuable as it is before it's gone. Maybe I don't know. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, completely. I mean, and I think there's quite a few things in what you just said. One potentially is about imposing constraints to create that feeling like if I thought this was the last time I would ever talk to you, I would probably really try to relish it and get the most out of it and say things maybe I'd been scared to say and ask you. And, so I think that is one thing it makes me think maybe in some situations it's good to artificially impose constraints. It can create
mm-hmm.
innovation, etc. I don't know if you feel
No,
that.
I do. And I think that, even, you kind of tapped on, particularly from a business risk, to kind of bring it back into business here,
Yeah.
but even from a business risk or from a strategy perspective, right?
Mm,
If we fail to, resolutely accept death as strategists, then we fear to
yeah.
spend resources, right? I don't want to send those troops out there because they might die. I don't want to assign this, project or do this thing because it might fail or, it might blow up in my face. And at
Totally.
some point in time, obviously there is life to, there's risk to life. Getting in the car is risky. But what do we do maybe from a business perspective or from just even a strategy perspective to make ourselves feel a little bit more comfortable, you think, with sort of really latching onto this idea that really ultimately death is completely unavoidable. Everybody we know is going to die, including us. And, functionally accepting that rather than ignoring that is liberation, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, anyway, I don't know.
Well, God, these are. I love talking to you because I always want to go in 8 different directions at once. But one of the ways I think is not revering the problems, not worshipping the problems. Like in that book that we both love, The Unfettered
Mm-hmm.
Mind, there's a bit about in ancient China a beast called a pai chair, which is like a a picture of a beast that's supposed to eat your dreams or eat your ghosts. Like, and what the guy suggests in that book is if you take that picture away, you don't have any bad dreams. If you revere this sort of thing that's supposed to eat your bad dreams, it makes you think about bad dreams. So I think it's so one thing is putting your energy into the doing rather than into the fearing. I think that's quite important and quite
I
subtle
love
because
that
it's not
so
that you,
much, man. Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
yeah,
yeah, I
yeah,
do because it's, you think about it like when we talk about change, right? And I've written this a couple of times in different forums, right? But if you really want to change something about yourself, like let's say you're an addict, like something
yeah,
hardcore, right? And I don't care what you're addicted to. You literally
yeah,
have to kill that persona to change it. You can't change it. You're not going to modify the addict. You're not going to reform the addict. You're not going to make the addict better. The addict is always going to be an addict. You basically just have to kill that person. You have to put it to
yeah,
bed, which means we can't even like, so the resolute acceptance of death in that form means that not only should I, not fear death, and I think we do sometimes. We fear killing our demons because maybe we're our demons convince us that that's our source of our strength, or that our demons convince us that we need them or whatever, or that we're an addict and we don't know what life as not an addict is going to be like. And so we fear sort of even killing that part of ourselves, even though we know that it would be beneficial to sort of put it to bed. I don't know. And I think the same thing is
yeah,
true in business, right? As you were saying or alluding to, we can get attached to our legacy. We can get attached to our mindset. We become attached to our business model, and we're afraid to kill it. How long have we been talking about creative destruction? And nobody ever does it, right? I mean, nobody ever really does that. I don't know.
well,
Yeah.
two guys in a garage do it, and then they beat your business,
Right,
right?
right.
Yeah, but there's another really interesting thread, and I don't think you and I have talked about this explicitly before, Lee.
Hmm.
But it's like taking inaction as a project. So it's like rather than saying, okay, say there's a few different things I could do. I could migrate to the cloud. I could outsource. I could this. I could that. And then we look at each of the things I could do, and we like look at the value, the risk, the impact, all this kind of thing. But we don't take not doing anything as a project. We sort of that's so I think if instead you say, okay, let's take the inaction project. I don't change anything, I don't do anything. And then we treat it exactly the same as if it's an active thing, and we apply the same value, risk, etc. metrics. I think that's quite magical, and I've almost never seen anyone
Oh
do
my
that.
God. That's like fundamentally life changing, right? If you apply
Mm,
that principle, right? If you think about the status quo, just maintaining the status quo as a set of actions, as something that
yeah.
you're doing rather than something that you're
Mm,
allowing to happen, right? Turning
yeah.
that from passive to active, which as a strategist,
Yeah.
as a business leader, we are, right? There are no passive actions as a CXO.
Yeah.
Everything you do or
Yeah.
fail to do is your accountability and an action, right? Everything you do or fail to do is a verb, right? It's
Mm,
something you're going to be held accountable for. And so as a consequence, dude, I just love that so much. The idea of inaction as a project. Inaction is an action, right? That it's really negative space, but it's still a
Yeah.
vector. It's still energy. It's still consuming
Yeah, and
resources.
if you sort of score it the same as you'd score other
Mm-hmm.
things, and I'm a bit embarrassed to say this, but because this is a weird kind of conversation, let me say, I sometimes I try and write sort of haiku and sort of mystical kind of things,
Sure.
and I tried to express that concept with the sense that every road has three sides: a left side, a right side, and a middle. And the idea is that the middle of the road, which was my metaphor for doing nothing, is also taking a side. Is if you don't commit to the left side or the right side, you're still committing.
Once more, you
You're
get hit
committing.
from both directions when you walk down
Yeah,
the center of the road, right? It's not safe. It's not a good position to be in, right? Because you walk down the middle of the road and you're going to get smacked from both sides. You're basically a dead man walking, dude, right? Yeah.
yeah, but it's still an active
And
decision,
it's still
right?
an
It's
active decision.
that's the thing. Yeah, yeah, no, it's cool. I mean, any other sort of aspects of this kind of resolute acceptance of death that you think about when in a businessy
Well,
context?
in business and in life as well, just even, I don't know, resolute acceptance of me and who I am. And, a lot of, honestly, a big part of just my sort of progression as an individual, my individual growth has been hampered by my own expectations for growth. If
Mm,
that sounds any sense, if that makes any sense, right? I feel like sometimes I'm continuously trapped in between the man I was and the man that I want to be. And
mm,
being the man in the
mm,
middle, I guess part of it is part of I guess what I'm getting at with this metaphor, maybe I'm extending it a little bit too far, but recognizing that I'm always going to be the man in the middle is part of that. And this sort of, resolute acceptance of that fact that I'm never going to be perfect, that I'm never going to achieve everything that I wanted to achieve, and that what I really need to do is just sort of resolutely accept who I am and optimize as best as I can the pathways that I'm on, man. And give
I
myself a little
love
bit of
that.
forgiveness and kindness along the way too. Maybe I don't know, but
Yeah, I really, really like that, Lee. And, it's weird because I was wrestling in my head. I had a thought which I think is
mm-hmm.
different, but is sort of
Lay
similar,
it down.
which is as you sort of know, I kind of feel like I've never quite fitted in any environment or company I've been in.
Right.
And to me, one of the implications of this kind of resolute acceptance of death is not for a selfish reason or because I don't listen or learn, but kind of accepting I am who I am and going for it as me rather than continually trying to self censor because I'm a bit weird or people look at me funny or I don't. It's not exactly the same thought as yours, but I think they're almost like two sides of the same
They're
coin. And
married.
again,
Yeah.
with kindness, like you said.
Well, I say, I
Yeah.
wrote that piece between the Swordmaster having a conversation with his cat, right? And the cat says, just do you, Swordmaster, even the broken parts, right? Just do you.
Yeah.
You can't be a monk. You're not gonna do a monk. You're not gonna do Buddhism the way that monks do it. You're gonna do Buddhism the way that a Swordmaster does it. Just do you, Swordmaster, even the broken parts, man. And that's, I wrote you something last night. I'd like to share if that's okay. Can I do that? And
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
remember where I wrote it or when I wrote it. I think it was probably on Teams, but I'm trying to figure out where I can find it. But it's sort of the opposite of namaste, right? Which, I meant it kind of in a funny way, but actually, not, right? Which is that, the scared, seeking, broken, frightened, attached individual inside me sees and acknowledges that in you as well,
Mm.
right? And I don't want to like belabor the point there, but it's kind of playing with what we were just talking about accepting ourselves, accepting our faults, and even putting our fear of those things to bed, killing them. The idea of sort of namaste, that the light in me reaches out and sees the light in you, is awesome. It's also super unattainable for most of us, especially if you were born neurotic like me. But the neurotic person in me totally sees, loves, and accepts the neurotic person in you. And it's not, exactly the opposite. It's more this recognition. Perhaps it ties with Wee Wei last week, right? Which is that, when we follow the Tao, when we follow the river, we're going to have intersections. Those intersections are going to overlap. And we want to make those overlaps as beautiful and harmonious as possible, right?
Yeah. I love that, man. And if you take what you said and you flip it into a leadership
Mm-hmm.
context, it's almost about I think you did the opposite of namaste, right?
Right.
Estaman
Yeah,
or
yeah, yeah.
whatever it is. It's almost like doing that to your team. It's like killing your own expectations of them and your own kind of idea of what they should be, and letting them be a bit broken and be a bit off beam and not do what you want and not say what you want,
Sometimes
right?
even maybe being a little bit disobedient, because where does awesome come from? Like
Yeah, yeah.
99 times out of 100, awesome comes from disobedience.
I completely disagree with you, Leigh. Sorry, I was disobedient. Yeah, yeah, man. Yeah, but I think there is a bit about that, right? Killing your, not just killing yourself, but killing your expectations of,
Yeah,
maybe
killing those
killing your outlook
expectations,
as
right?
the person.
We're not going to be beautiful creatures of light when we meet all the time. Sometimes I'm going to yell at you in traffic, and you're going to yell
Yeah,
back, and let's just let it be
yeah,
that. We
yeah,
intersect and
yeah,
then we separate and we're fine, right? It doesn't have to carry
yeah.
on. We don't have to like perpetuate this karmic wave, and I don't have to take that home to my family and yell at them. And when we bring it back into a leadership context, when we're talking about our teams, right, we're going to find things that are frustrating. We're going to find things that are never moving as fast as we want. And part of what I think we need to do with the resolute acceptance of death is to resolutely accept that fact, right? To just kind of embrace the reality of that and go with it. Because when we do that, right, the what's the chief cause of sort of disruption when we think about failing to do this? Why not accepting death is a problem is because when we resist, when we cling, when we attach, when we seek, we create waves. And those waves
Mm,
inevitably interact with other people in a very negative way, right? Like interacting with somebody in traffic. Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, that is going to create a negative wave that's going to interact in a negative way. So when we approach these situations, as you were saying, with all these laden expectations, and I remember, man, one of the worst sets of expectations I ever put on somebody, and I hired this person as an analyst, and it broke my heart that he left, was because I expected him to be as good, to kind of put the same level of effort. And, I had to say, I have very high expectations for myself, and I sort of projected those on this new analyst and kind of broke him,
mm, mm.
right? A little bit.
It's not me. It's not me, is it?
Yeah, no, it's not you. Maybe I probably, maybe, even if it were, you're back
I'm
now, so it's
joking.
okay. But you kind of, when we can do that, we can break people by pushing all those expectations onto them, by sort of, I'm a good person, I was in the 82nd Airborne, I can run and jump and do all this other amazing stuff, and I'm super highly motivated, and I expect everybody to be that way. Well, maybe they are, but in their own ways. They're not going to do it the way that I do it, right? They're going to do it their own way. I don't know.
Uh, yeah, man.
Hey, Dave, we've been
Mm.
going here for about 18 minutes. So we got about 2 minutes left, I think, in what our usual time commitment is. I like to keep these things at about 20 minutes so that they're a nice little bite sized nugget that our folks can watch over lunch or while they're on a coffee break or something like that. Last 30 to 90 seconds on the resolute acceptance of death.
Well, from my side,
Mm-hmm.
um, I was thinking about this before the call because we agreed the topic we were going to talk about. For me, the resolute acceptance of death, how does that show up in your life as a business executive? There's at least three ways. One is kind of death of doubt. So you commit to things rather than continually half committing, which in a way is guaranteeing failure.
Mm-hmm.
So death of doubt is one thing. The second one is once you're doing something, a death of fear. So you don't allow yourself to continually be fearful. And the third related is kind of death of what others think about you. So once you've decided to do something and you believe that it's the right thing to do, you don't stop listening. You keep listening and sensing and adapting, but you don't worry about, do I look good in this kind of thing. So those three: death of fear, death of doubt, death of fear, death of worrying about the optics, if you like, the opinions of others, are powerful concepts. And what is there any kind of summary thought that you had that similar to
I
that?
had a
What
million
your
of them, Dave, but I'm going to leave it with that. Death of doubt, death of fear, death of dependent esteem,
hmm,
right?
nice thought, yeah.
I love that. I love that. Death of doubt, death of fear, death of dependent esteem. Man, dude.
Nice.
As always, I love our conversations, and I'm glad that we're able to share these with some other people. It's absolutely fantastic, mate. And I look forward to the next one. All right.
Excellent.
It's a on, baby.